decided now full force to do something about the Jewish problem, the Jewish question.
Right.
So what they did was that they devised a plan, as we said, right? They devised a plan to enslave them. But now, further on, besides the fact that they enslaved them, there was also another plan. The other plan was also what? To reduce their population, to limit their procreation. So they should not procreate on a rapid basis. Why? Because they were procreating on a very rapid basis. That was the whole thing. You understand? What happened was that they say they were having like 6 and 12 and 18. Each pregnancy was producing multiple children. So this was making a rapid increase in the population, which was abnormal. Right? How abnormal is it, by the way? You want to know how abnormal it is? That how many Jews left Egypt? Several million Jews left Egypt, but they came there only 70 people. Right? Altogether, it was a family of 70. So can you imagine? Within 200 years, 70 turns into millions of people. This is unbelievable, right? And the reason was because HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to increase them. He wanted to bring down all the souls that he has to bring down to the Jewish people. So therefore, he brought it down at a very rapid pace. Once the Mitzrayim saw that, once the Egyptians saw this rapid increase, they said, we have to curb that. So the first step was to enslave them. Why? Because enslaving them was also going to curb. Why is that? Because they're so busy working, laboring, they don't have time to procreate. They don't have time for recreation, if you know what I mean, right? So therefore, they're not going to procreate so much. They're going to be too weak, too flimsy, too tired, right? They're going to be like totally, disoriented and not have time for that. That was the whole thing. That's why they made them work so hard. That was one of the reasons. Besides the other reasons that we mentioned.
Give them the saltpeter.
So what happened was that this did not work at all. It backfired, actually, this whole plan. What does that mean? That the more they tried to enslave them and to limit their procreation, the population rose and rose and more and more and more. Exponentially was rising, Not only was rising naturally, but exponentially also. Above nature.
But when you have nothing to do, that's what you do.
Right, but they were slaves, you understand? They had what to do. So the miracle was that, nevertheless, even though they were enslaved, and they had hard labor, very back-breaking labor, bone-breaking labor, nevertheless, the thing was that they were increasing exponentially. So once the Egyptians saw that they were not able to limit their population explosion by enslaving them, so they tried also a different method, right? Phase 2, right? Phase 2.
Hanger.
So what was the phase 2? The hanger method. Okay. So what happened was that now comes Paro and decides, right, that what? Basically, this was like an interesting decision. There was all kinds of theory behind this, right? All kinds of thoughts, all kinds of evil thoughts behind this. The thing was like this, right? That there was basically 2 women who were in charge of giving birth to the Jewish children. They were called midwives, Like today we have doctors, right? But in those days, it wasn't doctors who did that, it was midwives. Okay. A sort of a nurse, something like that.
Midwife.
Yeah, that's what I call it. So basically, what happened was that there was 2 ladies who were in charge of that. So Paro summons these 2 ladies, right? And what does he want to do? He wants to talk with them about this situation, right? Then what? He wants to tell them, listen, you guys are in charge of everything, you ladies. Everything is controlled by you. So you know what I need you to do? Listen, you got to do me a favor. I am proposing to you, number one, first of all, before everything else, he proposed to them to have a good time with them also. You understand? Uh-huh. Yeah. So he said, you know what? Let's have a good time together. I'm a king. It's worth your while.
Party.
Yeah, it's worth your while. So you offer them to have some playtime together with them. You understand? Uh-huh. But they refused, flat out. Jewish ladies are tough. So they refused. They said, no, sorry, but we're not into that stuff. We're not like those Egyptian ladies, that are totally steeped in immorality. So we don't do that kind of stuff. By the way, they say that the Egyptian in Egypt, one of the reasons why the Jews got out of there, the merit that they had to get out was because of that. That the ladies were not steeped in immorality, the Jewish ladies. They were not going with Egyptian men. They were not having relations with them. There was no connection between the Jewish men the Jewish ladies and the Egyptian men, and this is the reason why they merited to live there. So we're going to talk about that. There was also one exception to that rule. We're going to talk about that exception also, right?
They waited until Tel Aviv was around.
Okay.
Right?
So no comment on that.
Red Light District.
Okay. So what happened was, Paro comes and proposes to them. They say, no, sorry, king, but you're a pretty handsome midget, but we'll pass on that. Yeah. So So we'll pass on that. We'll take some normal people, as husbands. Not a guy like you. So he says, okay, you know what? If that doesn't find favor in your eyes, this proposition, I have another proposition for you, right? A more interesting proposition. You know what? We have a problem over here. We have a population explosion. The population of Egypt is increasing exponentially, and we got to curb this because we're not going to have enough people to food to feed them and to drinks and water and everything. They're going to take all our resources. We have people coming from Mexico, whatever, crossing the border, migrants, this caravans, all kinds of stuff. So our population is getting too great. So therefore, he said, you know what, we got to do something to curb this. So I got to ask you a favor. Do me a favor. Since you were the one who's in charge of giving birth, so therefore, if you see that it's a boy, right, kill him right on the spot there, before the mother is able to see what's going on, strangle him, whatever, do something, give him like a headlock, and finish him off, something like that, yeah. So if it's a boy, kill him, and if it's a girl, let him live, let her live.
We could use that.
Yeah. So what was the idea over here? You understand? The idea, of course, was to curb the population because since there's no men, obviously, right, there's going to be less also children. That's the idea.
Rabbi, are you telling us?
Yes.
That the Me Too movement was started by the Egyptians?
Okay, maybe. So what happened was that yes.
What we have today.
So what happened was that
of course.
He tells them, we got to curb the population. It's getting out of control. What can we do? I feel bad, but this is the only solution. But they say, by the way, there was also, besides curbing the population, there was also another thought that he had, evil thought, dastardly thought that he had, right? Which is what? He was thinking basically that he wanted to have intermarriage between the Egyptians and the Jews. So therefore, since there's not enough men, Jewish men, so they're going to have to marry Egyptian men. You understand? These Jewish ladies. And what does that mean?
Pharaoh said this?
Yeah, that was also another thought that he had, right? Another evil thought that he had.
That happened, actually.
That's what he wanted. It did not really happen, but that's what he wanted.
I think Paul Abdul was the result. No?
Kill the guys and screw the girls.
That's funny.
Right?
Even though I haven't heard from her for a while.
Okay. So anyway, what we're saying is that what? Basically, he wanted that there should be intermarriage between the Jews and the Egyptians. Why is that? Because even though the truth is, right, that if you have a husband who's not Jewish, non-Jewish, and the wife is Jewish, the child is Jewish,
yes,
according to Jewish law, right? So then, what does that really help you to have intermarriage like that? Anyway, the children will be Jewish. But you know what it is?
Only according to the Jews.
Yeah, according to the Jews. But he knew that. He knew that very well. That's according to everybody. According to God. That's the way it works. It doesn't work any other way.
Yeah, but he thinks that they're Egyptians. So.
No, he knew the Jewish. He knew the Jewish stuff. He knew the Jewish laws. He knew. Okay. He was a smart guy. So what happened was,
except the people in Hollywood. A lot of people in Hollywood have Jewish fathers.
Yes.
Okay, a lot of them, and they actually, for solidarity reasons, or because they happen to love the father more, they consider themselves Jewish.
Right. Yes. So very true. So what he did was like this, right? That he basically wanted that there should be intermarriage. Why? Anyway, they're Jewish. So yeah, but they're Jewish, but still, right? Says the Talmud that a Jew like this, it's a little bit damaged there. The soul gets damaged. What does that mean? That because both parents are not Jewish, the purity of the Jewish soul gets damaged there a little bit. You understand? So therefore, he wanted to damage the purity of the Jewish soul as well.
So
that was also
no matter what.
That was also his intention. You understand? So all these things he had in mind. He was a very wise evil man, evil genius, right? Like we had before. Those guys, Stalin and Hitler, all these guys. He was also one of these guys.
It was opposite though. Hitler said you couldn't marry a Jew.
Yeah, everybody's got their own rules, They have their own,
opposite.
right? So what happened was that Paro told this to the ladies. So these ladies, who were they, by the way? These ladies. This was right. The names in the Bible, it says Shifra and Puah, right? But these are really nicknames, right? The real names were Miriam and Yocheved,
Really?
right? Those were the ladies. So what does that mean? That Yocheved and Miriam were from the top-notch families of Israel, right? From the Levites, So what does that mean? That these were very, very righteous women who were like, super, super ultra-orthodox, like, till the max. No, you can't mess with these ladies. You know what I'm saying? You can't propose to them all kinds of stuff.
Teach the guys Judaism.
Yeah, so you're right, exactly. These ladies are, they're invincible. They're invincible. So what happened was that these two ladies, you think they're going to listen to Paro? They could care less what he was saying, right? This impure, little midget, right? What do they care about him? So what happened was that after a while, Paro, started to send some spies over there to the hospitals to see what's going on, if his order is being enforced or not, right, or whether it's being neglected. So he saw, right, that they were not doing what he commanded to them. Okay. They were not doing it. So he summons them back again, right? He says, what's going on? I thought you ladies, were supposed to do what I told you. What happened? All of a sudden you had some memory lapse? How did this happen? So they came up with like a cockamamie excuse, to tell him. What was the excuse? He said, you want to honor the king. We want to tell you something, that this, what you commanded us to do, it's not really possible to carry out. Why isn't it possible to carry out? They told him, they said, these Jewish ladies, they're not like the Egyptian ladies. What do you think? We're the same like you? Your ladies are our ladies? No. What's the difference? The Egyptian ladies, when they're giving birth, they want to get sedated, they want to get all kinds of, drugs inside of them, and they're all like, sleeping, and they're giving birth. Yeah, exactly. So they're giving birth, like half asleep and unconscious. And because of that, you can do anything you want with their children. You can kill them; they won't even notice, right? But these Jewish ladies, they don't like to do all the sedation and all the what do they call that, right? The epidural and those drugs that they take, all these things to sedate them. So he says they don't do like that. They give birth like like totally live, totally fresh. They're totally alert, and you don't even have to help them. They give birth even without our assistance. They're like animals. Like animals give birth without needing any assistance from a man. Usually, right? That's the way it is, right? They said these ladies, they're like animals. They just give birth on their own. They don't need our assistance. We can't even touch them. They don't even want us to get near them. So why is it, by the way, that they called these ladies animals? Like it's not a nice thing to say, right? Maybe whatever. But you know why? They said the truth is, right, that if you look at the blessings that their forefather gave them, Yaakov Avinu, right, this one is a lion, this one is an ox, this one is a wolf, this one is a deer, this one, everyone has like an animal. He says that's how they were branded by their forefather Yaakov. They're animals, these people, they give birth without any assistance. So there's no way to trick them like that. They're too alert. That's what that's what they told Paro, So Paro looks at them and says, oh, come on. Oh, man, so, but they outsmarted him, what can you do? So what happened was that Paro was really not able to punish them because of this. You know why? What's the reason why? Because this command that he gave them was under the table, this was not for public knowledge. Because he didn't want to be embarrassed, to be like a, genocidal leader. He commits genocide. You understand? So what he told them quietly, he said, don't tell anybody, I don't want this to be on Fox, CNN. I don't want this, to be on the, on the social media, this and that, Twitter, this and that. You got to keep this quiet. So they said, listen, we kept it quiet, but we just can't carry it out. Sorry, but but if you want, if you're really interested, we'll publicize everything, and then we'll see what people say. So no, it's okay. Forget about that. We'll skip on that. So therefore, he wasn't really able to punish them because he didn't want this to go public. This whole thing, you understand? There should be a scandal. So therefore, what he did was he gave up on that idea. You understand? He had no choice but to give up. But anyway, nevertheless, they were trying to do all kinds of tricks like this. You understand? To kill the Jews, to make them, to control their population, to control their increase in numbers and so forth, so on. So what happened was, right, that there was a lot of darkness going on here, all kinds of dark things going on, because this was in exile, you understand? In exile, things are not normal. This is like a dark time. We saw, by the way, even in our times, that what was going on during the times of Stalin and Hitler, World War II. Things were very dark, very evil. Evil was propagating all over the place. The world was not normal at that time. There was a lot of things going on. Yeah, very, very grim, right? Very dark time. So what happened was that because of this dark nature of the exile, there was a lot of things which were happening, which were like totally very shocking events. For instance, right, the Chazal tell us a few of them. One of them was that they say that the Egyptians were so cruel to the Jews. How cruel were they? Right, that they had the system set up. The system was like this, basically, right? That they enslaved the Jews with a command structure. What does that mean? That there was one Jewish officer who was in charge of several Jewish slaves. So he had to give them instructions what to do, what work to do that week or that day or whatever it is. He gave them instructions, and then they had one Egyptian officer on top of several Jewish officers. So it was like a hierarchy, you understand? So these commands were...
Concentration camp.
Yeah, something like that, yeah. So, yeah, exactly. So it was coming down the hierarchy, you understand? These commands, these orders and everything. So what happened was that the Jews sometimes were not able to fulfill the quota that the Egyptians gave them. So what would happen was that if there was a shortage, let's say, right, of bricks, that they made for the building, for the construction, so what they would do is they would take a Jewish baby, and kill the baby and put him inside the building instead of the brick. So that's what they would do. The cruelty, right, was very, very great. You understand? So they would put the child inside the brick, inside the building, and he would be in the place of the brick. Can you imagine? They would make him a human brick, basically, the child. That's what they would do. So what happened was that now Moshe Rabbeinu comes out to see, right, what's going on with his people. He was at that time, Moshe Rabbeinu, what happened to Moshe Rabbeinu? Moshe Rabbeinu basically was never enslaved. What happened was that when he was a child, right, what they used to do in those days, as we said, right, there was a decree to kill all the males. So therefore, what they did was, they used to know when the Jewish women, each one is set to give birth, which day. They knew, right, according to the calendar. So therefore, they would come, the officers, right, at the time where the child was supposed to give birth, it was born, and they would see if they killed him or they didn't kill him. You understand? And if they didn't, they would kill them themselves.
Was that the same time as Masada?
No.
Is that another story?
That's a different story, right? That's a different story.
Babies.
Yes. So what happened was, right, that now comes. So they came when Moshe Rabbeinu, his mother Yocheved, was supposed to give birth. They knew when she was supposed to give birth, right? So what's the story over there? By the way, I have to tell you a little bit of the history, right? Who was the father and mother of Moshe Rabbeinu? Right? These were from the Levites, as we said, right? Levi. They were from the Levi family. So what happened was that there was one man whose name was Amram. He was the father of Moshe Rabbeinu. Amram was a big rabbi. He was the leader of the generation, the leader of the court at that time, Amram. He was a great rabbi, great leader of the generation. So what happened was that Amram, I'm sorry, was
Abedin?
Yeah. He was Abedin. So what happened was that Amram, he wanted to get married. So who did he marry? He married actually his aunt, right? Very strange, right? So what does that mean? That Yocheved, who was the daughter of Levi, she actually was the daughter of Levi. Can you imagine? Levi, who was one of the tribes. She was actually the daughter. They say, right, that she was born when was she born? When they came into Mitzrayim, that day that they entered, she was born at that time. Right? So that means that what Yocheved was much older than Amram.
Right.
You understand? How old was she when she got married with Amram? She was 130 years old at that time. Can you imagine? So this whole story.
She never smoked.
She never smoked. So this whole story was
130.
Yeah, in those days they lived longer lives.
So we still have hope. What?
Over that, you can live to 100. Maybe 120 if you're lucky.
So what happens is like this, right? That Yocheved is born on the day that they entered Egypt. So what does that mean? That this story that we're talking about now was 130 years after that she was born. She was already 130 years old. So comes Amram, who was 50 years younger than her. He was 80 at that time. Understand? And he marries her. Okay? So what happened was that she was already an old lady. She was like, she was, nursing home lady. You understand? She was a nursing home lady.
She really?
Yeah, like she was that age. She was like, totally old.
In strength, she was not.
She was an old
She
lady.
was able to have a baby?
Huh?
She was able to have a baby?
Tough luck.
No.
You understand? So what happened was that he married her. So they say, right, that what happened, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu made a miracle over here. That what? She was really an old lady, nursing home lady, and all of a sudden, she turned into a young, beautiful lady. You understand? She went back in time. HaKadosh Baruch Hu made her young and beautiful again. Can you imagine?
Like Delilah.
Right? When did this happen? We see also with Sarah Emanuel. That's exactly what happened with her, right? She had a child when she was 90 years old.
Wow.
She was also an old lady. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave her also youth. So same thing happened with Yocheved. Yocheved got youthfulness, right? And that's how she was able to give birth. Otherwise, she was an old lady, old maid. She was an old maid.
Is there some evil spirits or
Like
something?
20 years old, right?
Evil spirits.
Huh?
Is this some kind of...
From Hashem, from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. These are from the good spirits, right? So what happened was HaKadosh Baruch Hu made a miracle and made her young. And then what happened was that Moshe Rabbeinu came from that union. Right? But he wasn't the oldest of the family. The oldest was Miriam, right? Miriam was the oldest, and then Aaron, and then Moshe. They were all one family. You understand? So Miriam was the midwife that we just talked about. She was the midwife. So we see it's the same family over here, right? So what happens is so who were the midwives? Yocheved, who was the mother, you understand? The wife of Amram, and Miriam, who's the daughter. Those were the midwives. Just to give you a little perspective, right? Who we're talking about over here, talking about this family, right? So what happens is that she gives birth to these 3 children, and all of them are prophets. You know what I mean? This was a very holy family. Can you imagine? All 3 of them turned out to be prophets. Unbelievable! It's an unbelievable. Yes, we're going to talk about that. I want to talk about that. So what happens is like this, right? That Moshe Rabbeinu was born from this union, and they say, by the way, that one of the things that when you marry somebody who's like from your family, the children turn out to be more pure. Even though nowadays you're not allowed to marry too close to your family, too close you're not allowed to, right? But yeah, you can marry a cousin, exactly. So they say, right, that the children turn out more pure like that. So this is what happened, right? He married his aunt. Can you imagine? So that's why the children turned out to be very pure, and also the fact that they were also tzaddikim. All of them were tzaddikim.
No, those kids.
They were all very holy, righteous people. So therefore, it turned out to be the most 3 righteous people, right, that we ever had in the Jewish people. Miriam and Aaron and Moshe came from this family. So what happened was that Moshe Rabbeinu was supposed to be killed when he was born, right? Because they came to visit her, because they knew, right? They had it all timed. 9 months, we're coming. We have an appointment with you. Yeah, right. You get an official visit from the government, right? So you know for what, right? I don't have to tell you. So they came right to visit her. But what happened was that when they came, it was already too late. Why is that? Because he was a preemie, right? Moshe Rabbeinu was a preemie. You understand? He was born. All right. He was not that much, but he was he was born 6 months and 1 day, they say, right? That's how. So he was a real preemie, right? Because there are children who are born 7 months. This is considered to be a 7 months. Why? Because 6 months and 1 day, it's like 7 already. It's like 7. So therefore, he was born a preemie. So what happened was that since he came early, what they did was they hid him, right, for a while, for 3 months, until they were destined to come. They were set to come, the Egyptians, right, to visit. So what happened is that they kept him for 3 months, and they did whatever they were able to do with him. And then what happened was, as the Egyptians came, the Egyptians, by the way, were very evil people, very wicked people. So you know what they used to do, right? They would come to the house, and the Jewish house, and they would say, okay, any babies here? Any babies? So they would say, no babies over here, what are you talking? They would hide the baby, somewhere in the chest, under the ground, whatever, some hiding place, whatever. So you know what they would do, right? How would they detect if there's a baby there? Maybe they're being hidden. You know what they would do? They would bring an Egyptian baby.
They cry together.
Right, exactly. So they would make him cry, and they would hear the cry, and they would start crying, right? That's the way it was. That was a wicked thing that they had, the Egyptians. Can you imagine? That's the way they detected if there was a Jewish child there, so they could kill him.
You train their children.
So what happened was that they did this, but the problem was it was already too late. So what happened was that before they were set to come, they took a little bit of they made like a little boat kind of thing, whatever, right, basket, and they lined it outside with tar, inside with clay, so they should be waterproof, right? And they put him in there. They put him into the water, right? They put him into like a swamp, let him go, right? Wherever he goes, he goes. We can't do any more for him. But that's all we can do.
Just Moses' story?
It's in God's hands, yeah. It's in God's hands, what can you do? So what happened was that they expected a lot from Moshe Rabbeinu. Why? The reason was because Miriam had already prophesied before he was born that this was supposed to be the savior of the Jews. He says the savior is going to be born now of the Jews, right? He's the Messiah, He's going to be the born.
Why didn't the whole nation fight for him?
Huh?
If he was the Messiah, why didn't the nation fight for him?
They weren't able to fight. They were down and out, man. Down and out. How can you fight when you're being enslaved?
And then the
What's there to fight?
found the kid.
So what happened was that.
I was watching the movie today. I swear.
You really?
Yeah, I watched that.
Okay. So now what happened was that they just let him go, and go to the water. So what happens now all of a sudden is that this water is going, right, and where does it wind up? Right next to the place where the daughter of Paro is bathing there, right? The daughter of Paro her name was Bitya.
The sister, right?
Bitya.
Who's the sister?
We're going to the Torah version, not the Hollywood version, right?
Well,
okay, so
it still comes from legitimate sources.
Right, the Hollywood, it's a very original
So a
movie.
lot of things over there are altered. For example,
Yes.
in the movie, Moses is a slave, and according to the Torah, he
was never enslaved, right?
He was never a slave.
So what happens is like this, right? That Moshe Rabbeinu,
No, but he lived with the slaves.
yeah, he went and visited them.
He went to
Yeah.
visit the slaves.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's true. Anyway, guys, don't take Hollywood too seriously, Don't take it with a grain of salt.
Joseph,
If you know what I mean.
what is it?
Josephus, yes. That's a little bit more serious. Yes. He was a good historian. He was a great historian.
And then there was someone else also that they took from the books.
Okay. So anyway, getting back to what we said,
Better than me.
that Bitya, the daughter of Paro, was going to bathe. So what's the story, by the way, right? That Bitya was actually, the Chazal say she was a righteous woman. She was a tzaddikat, this lady, right? So they say, what was she doing down to bathe at the river? What was this whole story, right? So they say basically that she wanted to convert. She wanted to be Jewish, you understand? She converted to Judaism. That's what happened. Can you imagine the daughter of Paro converted? Right? The daughter of Trump, same thing. But Trump is better than Paro. Trump is a good guy. So anyway, it's right. You understand? So what happened was the daughter of Paro converted. She wanted to convert. That's why she was going to the mikveh. Nisim, downstairs. So what happens is, right, that she's going to the mikveh,
Okay.
So that's why she was going to bathe that day. She was going to convert. That was the whole idea, yeah. So what happens is that all of a sudden, right, she sees that little baby, right, with that little basket, whatever. Says, "Oh, what is that?
What'd you find?
Right? What did you find over there?" Right? So,
It's a crocodile.
they don't know what's going on. So, she had like these girls, these maidservants that helped her. She was not alone. She was a princess. You know what I mean? The princesses don't go by themselves.
And the music people.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, right. Accompaniment and everything, right? The whole thing, right? The whole entourage. So what happens is, right, that she tells them, go and see what that is. So they tried, that to prevent her from doing this. You understand? Because they knew that this was like a Jewish baby. They figured it out. So they said, we don't want this baby to live. Let him die. Let him drown in the water. So what happened was that she tried to reach to get to get him from the water. So Kadosh Baruch Hu made a miracle, they say, right? Extended her arm like many feet, right? In order that she should be able to reach. This was a miracle. That's how she was able to reach him and take him. So what happened was that she looks inside the basket, and what does she see, right? She sees a little baby, 3 months old, a preemie, and so what is he doing? He's crying, right? He's crying. But she saw two things, with this kid. It was very, very strange. This little baby, right? One thing was that she saw the divine presence, like holiness, She saw the guy, was like an angel, very holy. So she saw this. She went, "Oh my God, what is this? I see light emanating from this guy, All light coming out." That's one thing that she sees, right? Another thing that she notices is very strange, right? As we said, he was crying, but he was crying not like a baby. He was crying like a boy. You understand? So meaning what? He was so mature. At 3 months old, he sounded like a little 12-year-old kid. That's how he was crying. He didn't sound like a baby. Very strange, right? All kinds of strange stuff. So anyway, the point is that Moshe Rabbeinu, that's how he wound up in the palace of Paro. Right? This is the story. So what happened was that in the palace of Paro, right? They say Paro, when he saw Moshe Rabbeinu, you know, when he was a little kid, Bitya brings him, I found this baby, you know. So he looks at this kid, and he totally fell in love with this kid, you know, Paro. Can you imagine? Because he was so charming and so holy. So Paro was like, wow, this kid, full of light, you know. So what happened was that he fell in love with him and raised him like his own child. That's what happened. You understand? He was raised in the palace of Paro. Can you imagine? The savior of the Jews is raised in Paro's palace. It's an amazing irony, right? This whole thing, very ironic. Can you imagine such a thing like this? Well, figure it out. So, so what happens is that Paro, right, likes his kid so much, he starts playing with him, you know, every day, you know, goo 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 goo, you know, this kind of stuff, you know, he likes him, you know. So can you imagine he's growing up like this in the palace of Paro?
And the baby.
Right. So, yeah.
Pharaoh's sister is the one that finds him.
Right.
No, this was his daughter. It was his daughter.
No, the sister.
Okay.
We're going to the Torah version, not the Hollywood version.
In the movie, it's the sister. That's
Okay.
fine. But Pharaoh's sister finds him, but yet
Daughter.
the daughter finds him, but the child grows up calling Pharaoh father. He considers himself.
Right, he was adopted. You know, they adopted him. Yeah, that's what it was. He was an adopted child.
Yeah.
He
Basically.
raised him as his own, as they say.
They say, by the way, that this is also what's going to happen with Mashiach. You understand? That what? He's going to be raised in the family of our enemies. Just like, you understand? Just like Moshe Rabbeinu was raised. Moshe Rabbeinu was basically it's a preview of Mashiach. Same things will happen that happened to Moshe Rabbeinu will happen to also to Mashiach. They say the same thing will be by him. That what? They say that Mashiach is going to be raised where? In the court of the Romans. You know, the Roman leaders. He's going to be raised over there. They're going to be the ones to raise him, and he's going to turn against them and rebel and defeat them. You understand? So just like Moshe Rabbeinu did to Paro, the same thing will be with the savior of the Jews, the Mashiach. Same idea. They can grow up in the court of the subjugators of Israel, of the Romans, right? That's the idea. So it's an amazing thing, right? That the one who comes to destroy them is coming from them, from their house. You understand? It's an amazing irony, right? That's exactly the way it is. And Kadosh Baruch Hu, by the way, does that many times in history. That he takes this kind of like ironic kind of situation and turns it into reality. Because right? So that's exactly.
The other one lived at the same time that Moses lived. The other one.
What are we talking about? The other one?
I don't want to mention his name.
Oh.
But they said that he lived
That guy.
in the same.
So you're saying that the Messiah,
Yeah.
the Messiah could be Jared Kushner?
And
Oh my God. Okay, don't make me laugh. Okay, so okay, so
possible, I don't know. And then they said like there was 30 years.
yeah.
30 years that they didn't know. There was something about the age. 30 years of his life was missing, right?
What? I'm not sure what you mean by missing, but I mean he went to a different country. He went to exile. So what happened was like this. Right now, he's raised up. Can you imagine? He's raised up in the court of Paro. You understand? Not only that, by the way, he gets raised up at the age of 20. You understand? He's already like a young man. He gets appointed to be the chief of staff over there in Paro's house. Becomes chief of staff. Can you imagine? It's an amazing thing, right? So he's running the whole court of Paro. He's running the whole show over there. And he's the one who's destined to save them, take them out of there. It's an amazing story.
And Pharaoh did have his own child also.
Yeah, sure, yeah. So what
By the
happened?
way,
Yeah,
Rabbi, it makes sense because for a savior
yeah.
to do what Moses did, he had to infiltrate first.
Yeah, it's an interesting idea what you're saying. But you know what it is?
Do it consciously.
Even more than that.
No, but
Yeah.
for
It happened that way.
for a Messiah or a Savior to come from the outside and just to take over, usually it's not going to happen.
Yes, you're absolutely right.
But I don't think that was his idea. He was loyal, I think, to his father.
No, he's a Jew.
But I still think that he was
No,
loyal.
the Torah, wasn't the Torah...
No, he was definitely loyal to Paro. He was loyal. Yeah, there's no question about
He
it.
was the Messiah.
Yeah. Otherwise, he was not going to hire you. If you're not loyal to him, he's not going to hire you. He's not going to hire you for nothing.
He knew he was a Hebrew.
Yeah, for sure. He knew he was Jewish. For sure. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Again, the
I don't
Hollywood
think they
version...
knew at that time.
They would never respect him like an Egyptian, but they respected him very much.
No, I don't think they knew at the time. They didn't know.
They knew. Listen, you have to understand that the Egyptians were dark-skinned.
Right.
Jews were white, so it's a different.
It's with him too. What are you talking about?
You can't mistake one for the other. You know what I mean?
Because
Real Jews are dark, Rabbi.
Hollywood interprets that he didn't know and they didn't know.
Give me a break. So it says right.
Until they gave them the task of finding the infiltrator.
Okay.
That was going to turn against Pharaoh.
No.
And let me tell you now.
That's not what the Torah says.
Okay, let's see the Torah's narrative.
No, I mean,
Guys, we're
interpretation, but
All right, okay.
yeah.
let's not get sidetracked with Hollywood.
I didn't know that Moses knew that he was a Hebrew and they knew it.
For sure, everybody knew everything.
Later on, I don't think so. But
Right? He was putting on tefillin. He was studying Torah. What do you think he was doing over there? What do you think he was doing?
what, in the back room?
Maybe in the front room also. So what happened was, right, that Moshe Rabbeinu, at that age of 20, when he got appointed, so he felt very sorry for the Jews because he knew they were their brethren. They were his brethren. So he was very worried about them. So he used to go out and see what they're doing, to worry about them, to see what he can do for them. Maybe he can help them somehow with the slavery that they were doing. So what happens is, right, that he goes out and he sees the atrocities that are going on. The Egyptians, what they're doing to the Jews, how much they're how much they're putting them down, subjugating them, how much they're torturing them and doing all kinds of things, like the cruelty. So he goes out and sees the first day he goes out, what does he see? This is an amazing story, right? That they say that, as we said, right, that all the Jewish ladies that were in the exile of Egypt did not have any relations with the Egyptian men. There was zero, contact between them, and this was considered to be a very great thing. But they say, right, with the exception of one lady. So this was this story of that lady. You understand? We're gonna explain to you. Okay, so we're gonna explain to you what this is, right? They say that this lady her name was Shlomit, right? Bat Divri, that was her name, right? So we'll explain, right? There's a significance to that name. There's a significance. But where was she from? She was from the tribe of Dan, right? As we said, Dan was the most troublemaker tribe. You know what I mean? So she came from that tribe. She was from tribe of Dan. So what happens is, right? And by the way, it could be that from that tribe they were also very dark skinned. These people, as we said, right? That the Ethiopians come from there. So anyway, the point is, there comes this lady, right? And she had a bit of a problem. This lady. She was, she was a gossip monger, as we call it, right? Lady who likes to talk to everybody. Hi, how are you? You got to talk about this, talk about that. What's this guy doing? What's that guy doing? She was a gossiper, She liked to gossip. She liked to talk to everybody. Say hello to everybody in the street. Hi, how are you? Nice to see you. Hi. Right? So this lady, that's what got her into trouble. You understand? They say, right, that she was too social. Right? She had to say hello to everybody, get everybody's attention, speak to everybody, right, exactly, tailbearer, this kind of lady, right, exactly, oh, nice, okay, good, I like that. So comes, right, this lady, and she has a problem, as we said. So what happens is that she also does it to the men, she tells everybody, hi, how are you, nice to see you, also to the Egyptian men. Can you imagine,
No, hi.
You know what this leads to, right? You know what this leads to.
How high is it?
So what happens is like this, right? That now from the name you can see that, right? What's her Hebrew name? Right? Shlomit. What's Shlomit? Shalom. The word of shalom. What does that mean? Tells everybody shalom. How are you? That's why her name was Shlomit, right? And but Divri is also right to talker. She was a right
talker.
Yeah. She was a. You understand? That was her name. They say, by the way, the name has significance. The person has a name. It also tells something about its character as well. So that's exactly what it was, right? This name was exactly what she was. Telling everybody, hi, how are you? Talking, gossiping and this kind of stuff. So what happened was that because of this, that she had this bad habit. So one day she said hello to an Egyptian man, who happened to be one of the taskmasters, the officers, that are enslaving the Jews. So what happened was, in those days, the story was like this, right? These taskmasters would come in the morning and go to the Jews' houses. Right when dawn comes, at the crack of dawn, because they had to start working very early. No time for tefillin, no time for going to shul, right? Minyan, no nothing, right? Forget about all that. Right? Straight to work, straight to labor, No time for any spirituality. Right. So what happens is, right, that they go knocking on doors. It's 6 o'clock. Let's go. Let's get to the field. Report to your station. Right?
Why did they
just go and pray and do what they got to do?
Because they don't want them to have the prayers. They're slaves.
They do it themselves.
You understand? They want to use them for all they can get, as we said last week, right? They want to wring out everything from them. We talked about that, right? So what happens is like this, that now, right, comes in, right, that this, one of these taskmasters is the one that she says hello to. So now, right, this guy puts his eyes on her, and says, oh, this lady, she's very talkative. Wow. Interesting. Wow. I bet you I can have a nice social time with her,
Right.
Nice social encounter, Yeah. So what happens is that she now, right, he puts his eyes on her to see where she lives. He sees her going into her house, right? And all of a sudden,
knock.
Right? So in the morning, their husband was what? Her husband was a Jewish man, right, and he was a slave. So he was in charge of that guy too, to come and knock on his door in the morning. So what happened was that he came to knock on his door, right? He says, okay, no, time to go. Let's report to the field.
Let's go.
So once he wakes up, he goes out, he goes in there, you understand? He goes into his house, his wife doesn't know that it's him, that it's somebody else. She thinks it's her husband. It was in those days there was no lights. It was dark. So what happened was that he goes in there and he goes into her bed and does what he has to do. You understand? And she thinks it's her husband.
Oh boy.
You understand?
Couldn't see.
Dark. So what happens is like this, right? That she thinks it's her husband. She's probably half asleep. Whatever. You know how it is, right?
Right.
So what happens is that
You know how it is.
the husband, right? The husband happens to just come back for a second. Probably forgot his keys or something. Whatever.
Got his lunch.
Yeah, whatever. Lunchbox. So he comes back and he sees him coming out of the tent, and he says, "Whoa, what's going on over here? This guy's playing around my wife." You understand? So he, right away looks at him and says, "What happened over here? What's going on?" So he says, "What's it to you?" Tells him, "What's it to you? What's going on? What you're asking questions to me now?" He says, so he starts beating him, beating him and killed him. Give him some blows, deadly blows, finished him off.
Egyptian, right?
Can you imagine?
Can't hit an Egyptian.
And the Jews didn't rebel.
Right?
I don't understand this.
So you don't understand. So now what happens is like this, right? That he kills this Jew, and she's pregnant from this guy. Understand? So she had a child from him.
Yeah. So now what happened?
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. So
what happens is
more Egyptian.
now. And by the way, this child was also a troublemaker, just like her mother was a troublemaker. He was also a troublemaker. Understand? We can talk about it maybe some other time, but this is a different story. But he was also a bad boy. So what happens is like this, right? That now comes Moshe Rabbeinu, and as he's looking to see what's going on with this Jewish fellow, he sees this guy killing the Jew, this Egyptian. He spotted it. He just happened to be there, you understand? So he spots this, he looks at him, and Moshe Rabbeinu, they say, right, that he saw that he killed a Jew. And he looked around, it says, right, to see if anybody's watching. So once he saw that nobody was watching, he went and killed him. Yeah, he finished him off.
Is this a story like with from Hollywood, like the Master Builder? And Joshua came and he saved Joshua.
Okay, I don't know what to tell you. You gotta ask those guys over there in Hollywood. You gotta ask them.
Forget all
So,
I can make up a Moses story too. I'll bring you back.
so what happens is
It's the real narrative.
that, but according to a deeper interpretation over here, right? That's not exactly what we just said now. That's according to the simple meaning, right? But according to a deeper interpretation, according to the Chazal, according to the rabbis, what happened was like this, right? When it says that Moshe Rabbeinu looked around to see if somebody was watching, it doesn't only mean that he looked around to see if somebody's watching. It means that he looked with Ruach HaKodesh, with divine inspiration. He was divinely inspired, you know. He was a prophet. So therefore he looked to see that what? He wanted to see several things. Number one, he wanted to see why this guy killed that Jew. So he was able to see that, you know, that because he went with his wife, he went inside there, he realized what happened. He investigated with his divine inspiration, he saw exactly what was going on. That's number one. Number two, there's also another thing he saw. He investigated this Egyptian to see that what? That maybe something is good in him, you know? Maybe he has some good children coming from him in the future, or some descendants, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, so forth, so on. So they say once he saw that he doesn't have anybody good coming from him, he's totally wicked himself also. He has no merits himself, and also no merits from his offspring. So because of that, what he did was what? He didn't really kill him physically, right? What he did was he uttered the name of God, and when he uttered the name, he killed him. You understand? With the name of God, he killed him. He didn't touch him. He never touched the guy. So what happens is that at this point, he goes and buries the Egyptian, you know, that he killed. Buries him. Why? He doesn't want it to be noticed what's going on, right? If they see him, it's going to be trouble. So what happens is, while he's burying this guy, come now two Jews, right? Who are these? The troublemakers, right? Datan and Abiram. You know, these guys were always the biggest troublemakers throughout the life of Moshe Rabbeinu. Until they died, right? They were swallowed up by the ground. Right? There's a little different story, but the point is, right? Datan and Abiram. Right, they were the ones that went with Korach, yeah. So what happened was that Datan and Abiram see Moshe Rabbeinu, and they saw what he did and everything, you know. So all of a sudden, they ignored that for a while, and they start to fight with each other. You understand? They were like violent guys, you know, two violent, gangsters, you know. They start to fight with each other. So what happens is that one raises his hand, and he wants to give him like a wallop, you know. He wants to wallop the guy, you know. Bah! You know. So Moshe Rabbeinu spots them. He sees two Jews, you know, one raising his hand to hit the other. So he tells him, he says, "What are you doing?" He says, "You're hitting your fellow Jew? You're not allowed to hit your fellow Jew. What are you doing? You know? Don't you know that it's forbidden to hit a Jew?"
Go find it.
What the? So they turn around, right? And they look at him. They say, "Who do you think you are?
Who are you?
You know, who are you to tell us what to do? Mm-hmm. What? You think what? You're a master?" Mm-hmm. So he says, "I guess you know what? I guess you want to do the same thing to us as you did that Egyptian, huh? We saw what you did to him. We saw that you killed him. You know? So you probably want to do the same thing to us, huh? Say some hocus pocus and then kill us also."
I will get you.
That's what they told him, you know? Mm-hmm. So they said, "Don't you dare, you know? What do you think? Don't you dare to do that to us." So what happened was that Moshe Rabbeinu, he looked at them and he was in shock. How did they have the chutzpah to say such a thing like this, you know? So then, you know, what happened was that he says, right, in the verse it says like this, right, that Achen noda davar. What does that mean? That the matter has been found out. According to the simple meaning, what does that mean, the matter has been found out? That now people will know, right, that I killed that Egyptian. These guys, they saw it. People have seen it. So I'm now, you know, I'm not undercover anymore, right? I'm totally exposed. That was one way of looking at it. But there was also another thing, which was what? That, according to the deeper meaning, what he meant was like this, right? He says, "I never understood why the Jews have the toughest luck out of all the nations, right? All the other nations are doing well in Egypt, having a good time, and the Jews are the only ones that are enslaved." So he says, "I never understood." He was always wondering, you know, pondering as he was as a young man, how is it that only the Jews are enslaved and all the other nations are doing fine? What sin do they have? You know, what's their sin? What's their transgression that they have such a situation like this? So he says, "Achen no da davar." You know what he said? Now I know why.
Fighting with each other.
You understand? pretty close. So he says, now I know why the Jews have the worst luck of all the nations, have the worst lot of all the nations, that they're being enslaved like this. Why? So he says, you know why? Because we have informers like this. These guys are informers, man. That's what he said.
Video cameras.
They go and they inform.
Rats.
Yeah.
Rats.
We have also some rats over here. Those guys, right? Those guys from 108. Those guys. Yeah, those guys, right? So,
No, shocking. A lot of rats.
Yeah, pharmacy rats. Pharmacists. Yeah, we have those guys. So anyway, the point is, right, that he says, now I realize, because they're informers, and this is why they have this bad lot. What does that mean? That they go against each other. They fight with each other. They have no respect for each other. They hate each other. A lot of rivalry. And they inform each other.
Happen in other nations?
You understand? That other nations are more loyal to each other. They said the Jews are the biggest. That's exactly why they were enslaved. That was his conclusion.
These were the troublemakers.
You understand? Not all of them were like that, but since they have people like that, this is what makes them enslaved, because they have informers.
You gotta burn them alive and watch.
So, by the way, you should know that in every generation there are people like this. There are informers. There are people who inform to the CIA, to the FBI, and all kinds of things. There are people who know what's going on in the community, and they tell them, this guy's doing this guy's doing that. They have rats all over the place. They have informers everywhere. It's a fact. It's known. It's known. It's very well known.
Well, in Russia it was happening because of other reasons. If one
Yes,
neighbor,
I understand.
If one neighbor had money and you didn't, you were jealous of him, and you told the KGB, oh look, this guy's wife is doing loads of shopping all day long when the whole neighborhood is starving. The next thing you knew is
They're coming for their food.
they would knock on your door. Where's this money coming from?
By the way, I want to tell you a story. It's a true story, actually. My father told me, that when we first came to America, this was like in the 70s, early 70s, So what happened was that he told me he gets a visit from FBI agents all of a sudden, They come to him, He told me about this. When I was older, he told me. He didn't tell me when I was a kid. So he says, right, what happens is they come to him, they say, we see that you came from Russia, you're Russian, one of those Russian guys, one of those Russians, So they told him, they said, you know what, we're interested in hiring you to be a spy. Yeah, it's incredible. Yeah, they do that. They do it all the time.
They're the 70s, they were communist scared.
So they told him, they said, we want to send you around, to see what information you can gather. Maybe go back to Russia, to all kinds of things. They wanted to.
You should have taken that job.
It's like the guy that killed Kennedy.
You could have retired on a pension at 45.
Right.
Like him.
Interesting.
What was his name?
So what he told me? He said, my father said that he didn't take the job. Why? Because he was very afraid that they were gonna backstab him. Because what they do is they use you, and then they throw you away.
Yeah.
That's what they do.
Was the same thing.
You say you're dispensable. Disposable. You're disposable. So because of that, he said, I didn't want to get involved with that stuff. I didn't want to go into this kind of thing. So he says, he told him, he says, please, I already came from a bad country. Leave me alone. Let me just live my life. I don't want to get involved with more problems. I already had enough problems as it is where I came from.
Who was the other guy that was a spy that got caught and he's still in jail? He won't talk. I think they might have let him go recently. He started with a P.
Pollard, you're talking about Pollard, right? Yes.
Yeah, Pollard, right?
Yes. So what happens is that
I just want to drive my Delta 88 and live in peace. Rabbi. Huh? No, his family is
okay.
Delta 88.
So what happens is like this, right? That Moshe Rabbeinu now realizes what the sin of the Jewish people is. That they deserve to be enslaved like that. So we see, right, there was atrocities going on like this, right? This man was killed like this, to steal his wife, to take his wife, all kinds of things like this. And they say, by the way, that there was more atrocities, as we said, right? That there was the kids being thrown into the bricks, and used instead of bricks, as human bricks. Can you imagine? This was the cruelty that they were displaying, which was unbelievable. They say, by the way, an interesting thing, right? That one day Moshe Rabbeinu went out and he saw one kid being put into as a brick, used as a brick. So he cried out to Hashem. He says, God, he says, Hashem, how do you let this happen, to the Jewish people?
That's portrayed in the movie, by the way. I apologize for injecting it again. That Moses' mother is caught under a rock.
Oh, that's not true. That's not true.
And she screams out, and Moses doesn't know that it's actually his mother. And he stops the whole construction.
Right.
So
No, that's
Move out of the way. We're not stopping a whole construction for a Hebrew woman.
That's just drama. That's just drama.
An old lady made good mortar.
Yeah,
it was an old lady made good mortar.
Right.
So what happens is like this, right? This teaches you.
The children, the Egyptians or the Jews?
The Egyptians. So this teaches you, by the way, a good lesson. You know what?
It's a great film.
What's a good lesson? The lesson is that Moshe Rabbeinu prays to God and he says, God, how do you let this happen? There's such cruelty like this to the Jewish children. He says, what is this? How can such thing happen? So he says, what I'm doing to you Jewish people is I'm doing you a favor. He tells Moshe Rabbeinu, you think this is bad? This is very good what I'm doing. So God tells him. So he says, you don't believe me? He says, you know what? Try your luck. Right? What do they say? Try your luck. You know what does that mean, try your luck? Take one of those kids out and don't let him die. Save him, go and save him and see what happens with this kid. That's what he tells them. So he took him out. He went, he saved that kid. He took him out. He rescued him. He said, oh, okay, you go kiddo, go back to your parents. So this kid grew up. He survived. Holocaust survivor, whatever, So what happens? That he grows up. And this kid lived a very long life, by the way. You know what his name was? His name was Micha. Micha. Right? Micah, that's a piece of wood, whatever. That's something else. Formica, whatever. But his name was Micha, right? So what happens is, so Micha lived a very long life, and he actually was one of the Jews who went into the land of Israel. Can you imagine? He went to the Exodus. Mm-hmm. He left Mitzrayim. He left Egypt, and he went into Israel. He entered into the land.
He crossed the Jordan.
Can you imagine? Yeah. So what happened was that Micha was a very interesting character, by the way. How interesting was he? First of all, he lived about 1,000 years, this guy. A very, very interesting fact of history. But besides that, they say that this guy was very wicked. So he started an idolatrous cult in Israel. That's what he did, right? He opened an idolatrous church over there during the First Temple era. Can you imagine? That's what he did, right? So he propagated idolatry in the whole Jewish people, and this idolatry went for hundreds of years. And they say, by the way, that it was so bad. Can you imagine that he had this idol? He went inside Israel. He entered Israel with the idol, and he also, when they left during the exile, when Nebuchadnezzar exiled them, he also took the idol out of there. So that idol was going for hundreds of years, all the time that the Jews were in Israel. So they say that you see from there that Kadosh Baruch Hu was actually removing the bad weeds from Israel. So Moshe Rabbeinu was complaining. Why this happened? Kadosh Baruch Hu told him, this is all for the best. I'm removing the weeds. He says, go try it out and you see what's going to be. So you have to see from there, by the way, that everything is for the best.
How do you survive Yom Tzuf and the clouds of glory, all these things? How do you survive on the war?
Just like everybody else. So what happens is that this kid was a living example that Kadosh Baruch Hu, everything he does for the best. We have a belief in the Jewish people. Everything is for the best. So when you see, right, some young person dies and all these things, Kadosh Baruch Hu is always doing what's best for that person, because he knows that if he would stay in this world longer, he would do more damage than good. And therefore he wants to kill him as a young person. Why? That he shouldn't sin more, He shouldn't do more damage to himself and to the community as well. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu, everything that he does, that's what they say, right? Masechet Brachot. They say in the Gemara over there that we have to thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu for the good and for the bad also. We have to bless him for the good and bless him for the bad. That's why we have a blessing, right? In the Jewish people, we have, for something good that happens to you, we say, right? Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, she'echianu v'kiyamenu v'genu lazman hazeh, or Baruch atov v'emitiv. There's two brachot, right? One is for a single person, and one if it benefits more than one person. The second bracha. We also have a bracha for something, evil occurrence that happens, right? What is that? Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, dayan ha'emet. What does that mean? When somebody dies, we bless Hashem for that too. You have to bless Hashem also for the deaths. So we bless him for everything. Why? Because everything he does is justice. Everything he does is for the best, for him and for the community as well. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu should do all the best for everybody, Hashem, until we see Biat HaMashiach b'mehera v'yamenu. Amen. Thank you for coming. God bless you.